I was standing at their door with an envelope full of cash when Mrs. Bellamy grabbed my wrist. Her fingers were cold, trembling slightly, but her grip was iron. She leaned in close enough that I could smell the lavender soap she always used, and her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "If I were you, Naomi, I'd stop sending the money and check the camera." My heart stopped. Just stopped. The envelope felt suddenly heavy in my other hand, the bills inside seeming to burn through the paper. I opened my mouth to ask what she meant, but she was already shuffling back to her apartment, her door clicking shut with a finality that made my stomach drop. I stood there in that dim hallway, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, and for the first time in 5 years, I didn't knock on my in-laws' door. I just stood there, staring at the peeling paint, at the chain lock I could see through the crack, at the silence that seemed too thick, too deliberate. What camera? What money? I'd been bringing them money every month for 5 years. Every single month since Ethan died. Let me back up. Let me tell you how I got here, standing in this decrepit hallway with my world about to collapse. 5 years ago, my husband Ethan died in a car accident. Or at least that's what I was told. We'd been married for 3 years, had a beautiful 2-year-old daughter named Maya, and I thought we were building a life together. Then one phone call changed everything. His car went off a bridge. The vehicle burned. They couldn't recover much. Just some personal effects, and what they said were his remains in a small urn. I was 32 years old, and suddenly a widow with a toddler. The grief was suffocating. I couldn't breathe, couldn't eat, couldn't think. But I had Maya, and Maya needed me, so I got up every morning and I survived. That's all I could do. Survive. 2 weeks after the funeral, Ethan's parents, Lillian and Harold Carter, came to me with a request. They were elderly, they said, living on a fixed income. Ethan had been helping them financially before he died, and now they didn't know how they'd make it. Could I continue what Ethan had started? Just until they got back on their feet? I was drowning in grief, barely keeping my own head above water. But these were Ethan's parents. My daughter's grandparents. How could I say no? So I said yes. Every month for 5 years I scraped together $500. Sometimes more. I worked double shifts at the hospital, where I was a nurse. I skipped meals. I bought Maya's clothes at thrift stores and told myself it was fine. We were fine because family takes care of family. That's what Ethan would have wanted. Every month, I made the 40-minute trip across town to Ridgeway Flats, this crumbling apartment building that smelled like mildew and broken dreams. I'd climb 4 flights of stairs because the elevator never worked, and I'd knock on apartment 412. Lillian would open the door, but only a crack. Never more than the chain lock would allow. She'd take the envelope through the gap, murmur a barely audible thank you, and close the door. That was it. No invitation inside. No offers to see their granddaughter. No cups of coffee or questions about how we were managing. Just take the money and close the door. I told myself they were grieving too. That everyone processes loss differently. That maybe it hurt too much to see Maya because she looked so much like Ethan with those same dark eyes and that same crooked smile. But now, standing in this hallway with Mrs. Bellamy's warning echoing in my ears, all those small oddities I'd ignored were crashing down on me like a tidal wave. The way the apartment was always silent. No television sounds. No voices. No signs of life. The way Harold never came to the door. I hadn't seen him in person in over 3 years. The way Lillian's hands were always perfectly manicured when she reached through that gap. Not the hands of someone struggling financially. The way she never, not once, asked about Maya. I finally knocked. 3 sharp raps that echoed in the empty hallway. Nothing. I knocked again, harder this time. Lillian? It's Naomi. I have this month's payment. Still nothing, but I heard something. A shuffle. A whisper. Then footsteps moving away from the door. They were in there. They just weren't answering. I stood there for 10 minutes, knocking periodically, before I gave up and went home. The envelope stayed in my purse, the money undelivered for the first time in 5 years. That night, I couldn't sleep. Mrs. Bellamy's words kept repeating in my mind. Check the camera. What camera? The building had security cameras in the stairwells, I knew that, but what did that have to do with anything? And then I remembered something Mrs. Bellamy had mentioned once, months ago. I dismissed it at the time, because I was so deep in my routine of grief and obligation that nothing could penetrate it. She'd said she heard footsteps late at night. Heavy footsteps. A man's footsteps going up to the 4th floor, to my in-laws' apartment. Probably just Harold, I'd said. But her response came back to me now with crystal clarity. Harold hasn't left that apartment in 2 years, dear. And this man, he has a limp. A limp. Ethan had a limp. A slight drag of his right leg from an old basketball injury in college. I used to tease him about it. The way his footsteps were just slightly uneven, a rhythm I could recognize anywhere. No, that was impossible. Ethan was dead. I'd been to his funeral. I had his ashes. I'd mourned him for 5 years. But did I really have his ashes? If you're enjoying this story and want to hear more mysteries like this, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in years, and I went straight to Ridgeway Flats. But I didn't go to apartment 412. I went to Mrs. Bellamy's apartment on the 3rd floor. She opened the door before I could knock, like she'd been waiting for me. "You came," she said simply. "Tell me everything," I said, my voice shaking. "Please." She let me inside. Her apartment was the opposite of the cold, silent shell I imagined behind my in-laws' door. It was warm, cluttered with knickknacks and photographs, smelling of coffee and cinnamon rolls. "Sit," she said, gesturing to her worn couch. "I'll make tea." "I don't want tea. I want answers." She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "The cameras. The building manager is my nephew. He owes me favors. Big ones. I can get you the footage if you really want to see it." "I want to see it." "Are you sure, dear? Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I think you know what you're going to find." My hands were shaking. My whole body was shaking. "I need to know." She made a phone call. 20 minutes later, we were in the building manager's office in the basement, a cramped room that smelled like cigarettes and old coffee. Mrs. Bellamy's nephew, a tired-looking man named Tony, pulled up footage on his computer. "What dates?" he asked. "Start with last week," I said. "Thursday night." "Late." He typed, clicked, and grainy black and white footage filled the screen. The timestamp read 11:43 p.m. The stairwell was empty, the camera angle showing the 4th floor landing clearly. Then a figure entered the frame. Male. Tall. Wearing a dark hoodie and a baseball cap pulled low. But it was the walk that made my blood run cold. That slight drag of the right leg. That unmistakable rhythm. I watched as the figure walked straight to apartment 412, pulled out a key, and let himself inside. No knocking. No waiting. He had a key. "Go back," I whispered. "Go back a month. 2 months. 3. Tony pulled up footage from 3 months ago. Same night of the week, Thursday. Same time, around midnight. Same figure. Same limp. Same key. 6 months, I said. Same. A year. Same. Show me 2 years ago. Show me 3 years ago. Every single month for the past 5 years, on the 3rd Thursday, at roughly midnight, this man had been entering my in-laws' apartment. While I was sending them money I couldn't afford. While I was working myself to exhaustion. While I was telling my daughter we couldn't afford new shoes because Grandma and Grandpa needed our help. Can you zoom in? My voice didn't sound like my own. Tony zoomed in on the most recent footage. The quality was poor, the man's face mostly hidden, but then he turned slightly to pull out his key, and the camera caught a glimpse of his jaw. The shape of his ear. The way his hair curled at the nape of his neck. I knew that neck. I'd kissed it 1,000 times. I stood up so fast the chair fell over. My vision went dark at the edges, and Mrs. Bellamy grabbed my arm to steady me. "Breathe, dear. Breathe." But I couldn't breathe. Because my husband wasn't dead. Ethan wasn't dead. He'd been alive this entire time, hiding in his parents' apartment while I grieved him. While I struggled. Well, I sent them money every single month. The betrayal was so massive, so complete, that I couldn't process it. My brain simply couldn't accept it. I need to go, I managed to say. I need to. But what did I need to do? Call the police? Confront him? Scream? You need proof, Mrs. Bellamy said firmly. More proof. Because right now, all you have is footage of a man with a limp. You need something concrete. She was right. As much as every cell in my body knew that was Ethan, I needed more. I needed absolute certainty. The ashes, I said suddenly. His ashes. They're at Ashfield Memorial Grounds. His parents insisted on a proper burial site for the urn, even though I wanted to scatter them. They said they needed a place to visit. Mrs. Bellamy and Tony exchanged a look. You thinking what I'm thinking? Tony asked. What? I looked between them. If he faked his death, Mrs. Bellamy said slowly, then those aren't his ashes in that urn. The memorial grounds were a 40-minute drive north of the city. I'd been there exactly 3 times in 5 years because it hurt too much. Because seeing his name carved in granite made it too real. Ethan Michael Carter, beloved son, and husband 1989 to 2020 forever in our hearts. Lies. All of it, lies. I'd called ahead, claimed I wanted to relocate the urn to a different memorial garden, and the groundskeeper had been sympathetic and helpful. Yes, of course, Mrs. Carter. We understand. We'll have it ready for you. Now I sat in my car in the parking lot, staring at the small black urn in the passenger seat. It was sealed, brass fittings gleaming in the afternoon sun. Inside were supposed to be the cremated remains of my husband. My hands shook as I tried to open it. The seal was tight, hadn't been disturbed since we'd placed it here 5 years ago. I used a screwdriver from my glove compartment, working at the seal until finally it gave way with a soft pop. I lifted the lid. Stones. River stones. Smooth and gray, and absolutely, definitively not human ashes. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there, staring at those stones, feeling something inside me break and then reform into something harder. Something sharp. Ethan Carter was alive. He'd faked his death. He'd let me grieve. Let me struggle. Let me sacrifice everything while he hid away in his parents' apartment like a coward. And now I was going to find out why. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, go ahead and hit that like button. Leave a comment telling me what you think Naomi should do next. And make sure you're subscribed because this story is about to take an even darker turn. I called the one person I knew could help me track someone down without raising red flags. My cousin Jonah was a systems analyst, which was a fancy way of saying he was very, very good with computers and very, very good at finding information people didn't want found. I need your help, I said when he answered. And I need you not to ask questions until after. That bad. Worse. We met at his apartment that evening. I dropped Maya off with my mother, telling her I had to work a double shift. The lies came so easily now. Maybe I'd learned from the best. I showed Jonah everything. The camera footage. The stones from the urn. The 5 years of financial records showing every payment I'd made to Lillian and Harold Carter. He didn't say anything for a long time. Just sat there, staring at his laptop screen, his jaw tight. You know what this means, right? He finally said. This isn't just infidelity or abandonment. This is fraud. Insurance fraud, probably. Identity fraud. This is serious prison time. Good, I said, and I meant it. Okay. He cracked his knuckles. Let's find the bastard. It took Jonah 3 days. 3 days of cross-referencing databases I didn't know existed, of tracking financial anomalies and digital footprints that Ethan thought he'd erased. Turned out, Ethan hadn't been as careful as he thought. He'd been using a fake ID, working cash jobs under the table, but he'd made mistakes. Small ones. A credit card application here. A utility bill there. All leading to one place. Ironclad Industrial Park, an abandoned complex on the eastern edge of the city. Specifically, to Warehouse Number 7, which according to public records was owned by a shell company. A shell company that traced back to Harold Carter. He's been there the whole time, Jonah said, pulling up satellite images. Or, at least, he's been going there regularly. I've got footage from a traffic camera 2 blocks away showing his vehicle, a blue pickup truck registered to someone named Caleb Moss. Who's Caleb Moss? One of Ethan's old friends from high school. They worked together at a construction company before Ethan supposedly died. Wanna bet Caleb was in on it? I stared at the screen, at the grainy image of a blue pickup truck with 2 men inside. Even in the low-quality footage, I could make out Ethan's profile. 5 years. He'd been hiding for 5 years, just 20 miles from where his daughter was growing up without him. I want to hear him say it, I said. I want him to admit it. I want to know why. Jonah looked at me carefully. Naomi, if we're doing this, we need to involve the police. We will. But first, I need to know. I need to look him in the eye and hear him tell me why he destroyed my life. Okay, Jonah said slowly. But we do this smart. We record everything. We don't put you in danger. And the second we have what we need, we go to the police. Agreed. Agreed. Planning the confrontation took another week. Jonah was meticulous, setting up recording devices, mapping out the warehouse, even creating a backup plan that involved him calling the police if I didn't check in every 15 minutes. We chose a Thursday night, the night Ethan made his monthly visit to his parents. Jonah tracked him from Ridgeway Flats back to the warehouse, confirming the pattern. Now I sat in my car outside Warehouse 7, a tiny recording device clipped to my collar, my phone connected to Jonah's via a live feed. You sure about this? Jonah's voice came through my earpiece. No, I said honestly. But I'm doing it anyway. The warehouse looked exactly like what it was, an abandoned industrial building slowly being reclaimed by rust and vegetation. But there was a light on inside. I could see it through the grimy windows. And I could see the blue pickup truck parked near a side door. I got out of my car. The night air was cold, biting through my jacket. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. The side door was unlocked. Of course it was. Ethan felt safe here. Why wouldn't he? He thought I believed he was dead. I stepped inside. The warehouse had been converted into a makeshift living space. I could see a sectioned-off area with furniture, a kitchen setup, even a television. And there, sitting on a worn couch with a beer in his hand, watching a basketball game, was my husband. He looked older, grayer, thinner than I remembered. But it was him. Absolutely, undeniably him. I must have made a sound because he turned. Our eyes met. For a moment, nothing happened. We just stared at each other across that dusty warehouse floor. I watched the color drain from his face. Watched his mouth open and close. Watched him stand up slowly, the beer bottle slipping from his fingers and shattering on the concrete. Naomi, he finally said. Just my name. Like that explained anything. You're dead, I said, my voice eerily calm. You died 5 years ago. I have your ashes. I grieved you. I buried you. I can explain. You can explain. I laughed, and it sounded unhinged even to my own ears. You can explain how you've been alive this entire time? How you've been hiding in your parents' apartment? How you've been taking my money I couldn't afford, money that should have gone to your daughter? It's not like that. Then what is it like, Ethan? Please, explain it to me. Because from where I'm standing, you faked your death, committed fraud, and abandoned your family. What am I missing? He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it hurt. I was in trouble, okay? Bad trouble. I owed people money. Dangerous people. They were going to kill me. Kill us. They threatened you and Maya. So you faked your death. To protect you. To protect me? My voice rose. You let me think you were dead. You let me struggle alone for 5 years. You watched me work myself to exhaustion while you hid like a coward. I didn't watch you. I stayed away. I've been living in this warehouse, barely surviving, trying to figure out how to make it right. Barely surviving? I gestured around at the setup. You have electricity. Food. A television. Meanwhile, I've been sending your parents $500 a month. Money that clearly went to you. He had the decency to look ashamed. I needed it to stay hidden. To pay Caleb for helping me. To buy supplies. You needed it. I felt something break inside me, That last thread of the woman who had loved this man. You needed it more than your daughter needed new clothes? More than she needed to know her father? More than I needed to not work double shifts to support your supposed grieving parents. They were helping me. I know. I saw the footage, Ethan. I saw you going to their apartment every month. I know everything. His face went white. What footage? The security cameras. Did you really think you could sneak in and out forever? That no one would notice. Naomi, please. He took a step toward me, and I backed up. Please, just let me explain everything. The people I owed, they're gone now. They've moved on. I can come back. We can be a family again. I stared at him. Are you insane? You actually think I would take you back? That Maya would want a father who abandoned her. I never abandoned her. I love her. I love both of you. You loved us so much you let us think you were dead. Tell me, Ethan, did you ever think about what this was doing to us? Did you ever wonder if maybe, just maybe, facing your problems together would have been better than this? You don't understand the kind of people I was dealing with. Then make me understand. Tell me who they were. Tell me what you did. Because right now, all I see is a coward who took the easy way out and let everyone else pay the price. He was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. Harder. Fine. You want the truth? I gambled, and I lost big. Over $200,000 to a loan shark named Vic Morrison. He gave me a week to pay up or he'd start with you and Maya. So yeah, I faked my death. Caleb helped me stage the accident. My parents helped me hide. And I used that life insurance payout to pay off Vic through my parents. The money you've been sending? That was just to help me get by while I figured out my next move. There it was. The truth laid bare. And it was somehow worse than I'd imagined. The life insurance money, I said slowly. The $100,000 that was supposed to secure Maya's future. You used it to pay off your gambling debts. I used it to keep you alive. No. You used it to save yourself. If you'd really wanted to protect us, you would have gone to the police. You would have faced the consequences of your actions. Instead, you chose this. I chose to survive. You chose to be selfish. I was shouting now, years of grief and anger and betrayal pouring out. You chose to let your wife and daughter think you were dead rather than deal with your mistakes. And now what, Ethan? What's your endgame here? You just live in this warehouse forever while we move on without you. I was going to come back, he said quietly. Once enough time had passed. Once I was sure it was safe. I was going to come back. Well, you're too late. Because I don't want you back. Maya doesn't need you. We've built a life without you. A good life. And you're not going to ruin it again. You can't tell anyone. His voice changed again, taking on a desperate edge. Naomi, please. If this gets out, I go to prison. For years. Is that what you want? What I want is for you to face the consequences of what you've done. Think about Maya. She needs her father. She needed her father 5 years ago. She needed him when she started kindergarten. When she learned to ride a bike. When she cried herself to sleep asking why Daddy left. Where were you then? He didn't have an answer for that. I'm going to the police, I said. I have evidence. The camera footage. The fake ashes. Everything. They're going to arrest you and your parents and Caleb and anyone else who helped you pull this off. And you're going to prison, Ethan. For a very long time. Naomi, don't. Please. We can work this out. I'll disappear for real this time. You'll never hear from me again. Just don't go to the police. I looked at him, this man I'd once loved, this stranger wearing my husband's face. You were right about one thing, I said. I don't understand the kind of people you were dealing with. Because the old me, the one who loved you, she would never have done something like this. She would never have put her family through this hell just to save herself. I turned to leave. Naomi, wait. I didn't wait. I walked out of that warehouse, and I didn't look back. Behind me, I could hear Ethan shouting, but I didn't care. I got in my car, and I drove straight to the police station. The arrest happened fast. Faster than I expected. The police had been looking for Ethan Carter for years, it turned out. Not because they suspected he'd faked his death, but because there had been inconsistencies in the accident report that had never been fully investigated. My evidence gave them everything they needed. They arrested Ethan at the warehouse that night. They arrested Lillian and Harold the next morning. Caleb Moss was picked up at his job site that afternoon. All of them charged with fraud, conspiracy, and a list of other crimes I didn't fully understand. The trial took 8 months. 8 months of lawyers and depositions and media attention that made me want to hide. But I didn't hide. I showed up to every single hearing. I looked Ethan in the eye every time I testified. And I told the truth, every painful word of it. The jury found them all guilty. Ethan got 12 years. His parents got 5 each. Caleb got 3. The life insurance companies sued for the return of the payout plus damages. The state came after me for the death benefits I'd received. It took 2 years and most of my savings to prove I'd had no knowledge of the fraud, but eventually I was cleared. Maya is 10 now. She knows the truth. I didn't want to tell her, wanted to protect her from it, but she deserved to know. She took it better than I expected. Maybe because the father she'd known had only been a memory, a ghost. Learning he was alive but had chosen to stay away somehow hurt less than thinking he'd died. She doesn't want to see him.
Not now.
Maybe someday, but not now. And I support the decision completely. As for me, I'm rebuilding. I got a promotion at the hospital. Maya and I moved to a better apartment, one with a view of the park and enough space for her to have her own room. We adopted a cat named Whiskers. We have movie nights and inside jokes and a life that's ours. I don't think about Ethan much anymore. Sometimes I feel angry. Sometimes I feel sad for what could have been. But mostly I feel free. Free from the burden of grief I carried for 5 years. Free from the obligation to people who never deserved my loyalty. Free from a marriage that was built on lies. Mrs. Bellamy still lives in Ridgeway Flats. I visit her sometimes, bring her groceries, and listen to her stories. She saved me, in a way. Her warning gave me permission to question what I'd accepted as truth. Last week, Maya asked me if I would ever get married again. I told her I didn't know. Maybe someday, to someone who deserved it. Someone who would choose truth over lies, courage over cowardice, family over self-preservation. But for now, we're okay. More than okay. We're happy. And that envelope full of cash I'd been carrying the day Mrs. Bellamy warned me? I used it to take Maya to the zoo. We spent the whole day there, feeding giraffes and watching the penguins and eating overpriced ice cream. She laughed so hard she got hiccups, and I thought to myself, this is what the money should have been for all along. These moments. This joy. My husband died and left me a debt. For 5 years I paid it. But the real debt, I realize now, was never financial. It was the debt I owed to myself and my daughter. The debt of truth. Of justice. Of refusing to accept less than we deserved. And that debt is finally paid in full. Thank you so much for watching this story. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the channel for more compelling, true stories. Hit that like button and leave a comment telling me your thoughts. Have you ever discovered a truth that changed everything? Share your story below. And remember, sometimes the hardest truths are the ones that set us free.